It's Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Alex Jones. It is Monday, December 5th, 2011. We don't have any guests tonight because I needed all the time we have to cover the news. It is going to be a powerful transmission. We've also dug up some video of Senator Jay Rockefeller talking about globalist and Bilderberg treason here in America and making a big, disgusting, sickening joke out of it. We also have Senator Snowe making jokes about a new world order. Of course, both these senators last Thursday voted to allow the military to operate domestically and to disappear American citizens, and they're quite proud of themselves. So many times jest is where you find the real truth. That is coming up after the first break this evening. But right now, let's get into what's happening with the top of the pyramid, the big mega banks that are destroying, you could say pissing away the value of the dollar through devaluation. Look at this headline. Fed may give loans to IMF to help Eurozone. Well, internationally, the Federal Reserve is just the North American version of this, the U.S. version of this. Internationally, the IMF is an international global consortium of the very same six mega banks. And so it's just with one hand giving to the other hand and always acting like it's fixing the problems in Europe or it's fixing the problems in America. It's backstopping derivatives that the big six mega banks sold into the world market in the last 12 years or so. But notice they say that they may do it. They've been doing it for years and years and years. In fact, here's another headline. Fed says it takes no risk in lending dollars for Europe at zero or even lower than zero. Then they loan it out at interest to the general public and governments. So that's basically where the free money comes in and that devalues it. So they've been doing this for a long time. Here's a government accounting office breakdown where they go over the fact that 16 plus trillion, then if you add the other trillions that are involved, it's 23.7 trillion since 2008 has been, in some cases, just given or loaned at zero or lower than 0% interest. In fact, again, those numbers there are not in thousands. That's 2+ trillion there that was given to Citigroup. You can see right there where Morgan Stanley was given over 2 trillion. Bank of America down there with what, 1.344 trillion. Look over here on screen right here. We have an article from July 20th, 2009, 2 years ago. U.S. rescue may reach 23.7 trillion. And that's before they actually got the numbers. Now remember, this is your tax money. Then the bankers loan it back to the government. We give it to them in a bailout. They loan it back at interest to the governments, and they've lowered the U.S. credit rating. They've lowered the member states and the EU's credit ratings so that you have to borrow this from the same banks at a higher interest rate, and they created the fraud. I know it doesn't make sense. It's just an incredible level of bamboozling that is going on. And here's the Federal Reserve System. Opportunities exist to strengthen policies and processes for managing and assisting the emergency. Continuing here with this news, we have the fact that people like MF Global have made giant investments in bonds in Europe, in some cases with Corzine 40-1, showing just incredible gambling that is going on. But this brings volatility that the different brokerage firms and speculators love because they're the insiders and they know which way it's going to go. It's basically a rigged casino where the odds are absolutely stacked against the public, and they come in and finance and wine and dine and hire and pay off on record county and city officials, city managers, who then invest not just the pension funds, but also the bonds and other programs into these derivatives. That way you're held hostage by the financial fraudsters who say, give us more power or we'll implode your economy. I know I talk a lot about this, and it's for this reason. It's because until the public understands how this fraud works, that's hidden in plain view, we have no hope of reversing the direction we're going in, which is total debt bondage to the mega banks who are telling Europe, you give up all your sovereignty, waive all your rights, and then we'll bail you out. But then 90+% of the bailout goes to the very banks that are saying this. Iceland's the only country to figure this out and say no. And it turned out 90+%, what was it in that case, 92, 93%, was owned by the very, or owed by the very mega banks that were lecturing the Icelanders there in Reykjavik. Okay, continuing here, looking at more of what the big mega banks are up to. Here's a New York Times article from yesterday. There was an AFP article today. U.S. agents laundered Mexican profits of drug cartels. Now, I've been telling you since February, when we noticed in federal court filings that the U.S. government had declared in Chicago and other areas in different trials of Mexican drug lords, that yes, it's true, we're dealing the drugs and laundering the money and shipping guns into Mexico, but we're doing it for national security, and so it shouldn't matter. These Mexican drug cartels that work for us, that one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing, have now indicted. They should still go to prison, even though they followed our orders. And those mega cartels are waging wars against the other cartels that aren't laundering their money. And I told you this was going to come out because since February, 10 months ago, this has been in the El Paso Times, Chicago Tribune, but never became a national story. So now they're hiding it in plain view. Oh, yeah, we did launder some money and deal some drugs, only to learn how this money and drugs were basically transferred around, as if the masters are learning from their minions. Continuing, though, if the establishment thinks that they're going to ship guns into Mexico and to other areas of the U.S. to destabilize things and then blame the Second Amendment, think again. This is the Rubicon. This is the line in the sand. The public will not put up with this. Since Obama got elected in 2008 and became president in January of 2009, gun sales have been at a record pace, but now all of those previous records have been shattered in the last 2 weeks. Fear of a second Obama term spurs record gun sales. Single-day firearms purchases hit all-time highs. So Homeland Security on record is training the police and military to take on conservatives, libertarians, people that basically aren't communist or collectivist. And boy, I wouldn't want your job, because if 1% of the 150 million gun owners decide to not go along with these un-American Nazi-type or Soviet-type authoritarian actions, that's 1,500,000 combatants. And they're not going to just wait in their house for you to come at 4 a.m. And you know that. They're going to come out, they're going to find you. So my advice to all the people out there is don't be stupid like the Germans were with Hitler or the Russians were with the Soviets. Say no to this tyranny now, and let's reverse this, okay? Let's not go where this is going, because when you start secretly arresting people and get rid of all hope, and people know, well, I can just disappear into a black hole, they're going to start fighting you. Don't corner a raccoon, a wolf, a human. I mean, we're the dominant species on this planet. Just because the globalists play God and have tried to domesticate us, the veneer of civilization is already peeling back. And this country is at DEFCON 4 right now. The globalists do want a civil war. And that is the last thing we need. We are kicking their butt in the info war, just like Gandhi did. Let's keep it that way. But when they start offensively attacking people, the gloves are off. Never attack offensively. But if you do start defending yourself defensively, well, as you know, the sky's the limit. We are at the crossroads. And if you're a new viewer, don't laugh at this. Bear testament. Go do research into what we've predicted up to this point. We've been on target. I'm telling you the next chapters in this designed global takeover. The globalists don't care if it wrecks things. They believe you're going to break a few eggs and make an omelet. They want to dominate things financially with a paramilitary backstop. It's not going to work, but they may wreck everything in the process of reaching for power, like Napoleon did, like so many others did. All right, let's continue here. Truly disgusting piece of news. Herman Cain has come out and said he endorses Newt Gingrich. You've got Mr. Council on Foreign Relations, Mr. New World Order, Mr. Open Borders, gun control, carbon taxes, government-run health care, Mr. Establishment being endorsed by the former head of the Atlanta excuse me, the former head of the Kansas City Federal Reserve, one of the most powerful branches in the private banking cartel. Of course, he's endorsing Newt Gingrich. It is truly disgusting. And again, anybody who believes Herman Cain was paying a woman's rent for 13 plus years because he cared about her, needs their head examined. He is a liar. He lied about Ron Paul. He lied about others. He is a puppet, and we told you that. And now it's come out. It was 9999. There was going to be payroll tax on top of it. Then they could jack up all of those nines and have the federal government involved in every facet of our lives. Value-added tax and sales tax, the Fed's involved in that on top of an income tax? Give me a break. Okay, continuing, Pelosi has come out and said she will reveal information on Gingrich when the time is right. And Gingrich made jokes about it, about, sure, give me my Christmas gift. I mean, this is two crooks who become enormously wealthy off their insider trading, off their knowledge, off their lobbying, off their broken promises, off of all their activity. And we've got these two who've been in TV ads promoting carbon taxes that would literally shut down more than half the power in this country. And Gingrich, when he got caught doing that, said he'd never supported it. This is how dumb he thinks you are. So Gingrich fires back and says, hey, they're an early Christmas gift. See, he's a ringer, folks. He was sent in to pose as a libertarian constitutionalist, but his actions, his fruits, show the opposite. Here's Newt Gingrich bragging on national TV just a few days after 9/11 about how he had gotten Homeland Security set up in the CFR Hart-Rudman Commission months before 9/11. And that's true. Bill Clinton called for Northcom and Homeland Security in the early 90s. What was it, 1994? This has always been a strategic plan. So here's Gingrich, the consummate insider.
I think that you've got, first of all, I think you've got to give more resources to the intelligence community. I think you've got to repeal some of the rules that were imposed during the Clinton administration that, for example, blocked you from dealing with people who might have a human rights problem. By definition, if you're trying to penetrate terrorist cells, you're going to have to deal with people that wouldn't fit necessarily the ACLU standard. I also think that we probably need much better coordination, not just between the FBI and the CIA, but we have U.S. Department of Agriculture people at every entry port. We have Immigration Service people checking your passport. We have Customs people. We have Border Patrol. Their computers don't talk to each other. And we have a substantial problem. We recommended in a commission I served on, the Hart-Rudman Commission, creating a Homeland Security Agency and bringing Coast Guard and Border Patrol and Customs and Immigration into one place where they would actually have a central role and a central mission led by FEMA, because we warned that this incident, as terrible as it is smaller than the incidents that we warned about back in March, which we think in the next 10 or 15 years could include chemical and bio.
All right, so FEMA is to absorb the federal government and unify the crime. And now we learn under FEMA and Homeland Security, the major 8 agencies he listed are all dealing drugs and laundering money. Confirmed. You got to have centralization to carry out crime, or the public finds out. And we've got Newt Gingrich, again, in this whole act with Nancy Pelosi, like they're fighting with each other. He's meant to go in there, play the part of a ringer for Obama, just like Bob Dole with Bill Clinton. Guaranteed. That's always been his point. He's part of the futurist society. He's called for socialism. He's called for an end of the family. We covered that last week. It is absolutely incredible. Now let's move on to another ringer, and that's Donald Trump. He has dismissed Ron Paul as a joke candidate. This is a guy, Mr. Casino, Mr. gives twice as much money to the Democrats, not a Republican, not a conservative, eminent domain, take all ladies' property. This is a guy who I told you after he, made the whole situation of where Obama was born and the birth certificate looked stupid, would then get his casino deals in Illinois, that Rahm is their man in Chicago. And it's the same deal. I mean, this guy's a joke. Since when is he the person that anoints people? Since when is he the one that runs debates? They are turning it into a total circus to further discredit everything. I mean, you are the joke. He says Trump told NBC's Matt Lauer, Ron Paul's an example that says Iran should have nuclear weapons or can have nuclear weapons. Doesn't even think in terms of Israel. Really, that's not what Ron Paul said. Israel's own former Mossad chief has said it'll be a, quote, catastrophe 2 days ago if Israel attacks Iran. We're going to attack Pakistan that our government under Clinton helped AQCon Laboratories develop nukes with. I mean, our government's been taken over by criminals. It doesn't care about our interest. Give me a break. I'm tired of these guys menacing us with terrorists. We have a better chance of dying, from a honeybee sting so they can take all our rights and keep us safe. It's a load of bull. All right, we're about to go to break, but first I want to get to another elderly woman says she was exposed at Kennedy Airport, and I'm sure he thinks that's funny. And First Lady Lenora Zimmerman, 85 years old, in a wheelchair, taken behind closed doors because she couldn't get up. They get her up, they take her clothes off. And then they came out and denied it last week. And I knew how they would deny it. At first, they didn't say why it wasn't true. They've come out today in the news, and they've said that it's a procedure, not a strip search. Okay, so I guess sticking your hand in a blender now becomes a procedure. So they do this. It's on record. Remember, they said they were going to stop strip searching kids last year. They still do it. They're a pack of criminal liars. They're out of control. They violate the Constitution every day when they do what they do. So... And now a third elderly person has come out and said that the TSA made them strip search in the little room. See, first it's take your shoes off, then your belt, then answer questions, then go in a radiation machine, then have your genitals grabbed, then, on the outside, then the inside. Now it's go in the rape room. But they're saying it's okay. It's not strip search because we say it's not. Taking your clothes off, it's like Bill Clinton saying it depends on what the definition of is. It's all lawyer games. Third elderly South Florida woman says TSA made them strip. I mean, they're on record they do this. I remember last year when I said they were going in people's pants, the TSA denied it, and then all the videos came out showing it. Again, here's their own quote. The TSA says no improper strip searches were conducted. See, first the headline was we don't do strip searches. Now it's no improper strip searches were done and the protocol was followed. So, I guess they could next beat your brains out as long as protocol was followed. It's all this legalese garbage so you don't realize your rights are being violated. Your 10th Amendment, your 4th Amendment, your dignity, everything else. Now, we're going to go to break with this Ron Paul video. This pro-Ron Paul video titled Imagine China Invades America. And this video basically breaks down the outlandish scenarios that are unfolding in this country. We'll be right back after break. It's Infowars Nightly News.
Imagine for a moment that somewhere in the middle of Texas, there was a large foreign military base. Say Chinese or Russian. Imagine that thousands of armed foreign troops were constantly patrolling American streets in military vehicles. Imagine they were here under the auspices of keeping us safe, or promoting democracy, or protecting their strategic interests. Imagine that they operated outside of U.S. law and that the Constitution did not apply to them. Imagine that every now and then they made mistakes or acted on bad information and accidentally killed or terrorized innocent Americans, including women and children, most of the time with little or no repercussions or consequences. Imagine that they set up checkpoints on our soil and routinely searched and ransacked entire neighborhoods of homes. Imagine if Americans were fearful of these foreign troops and overwhelmingly thought America would be better off without their presence. Imagine if some Americans were so angry about them being in Texas that they actually joined together to fight them off in defense of our soil and sovereignty because leadership in government refused or were unable to do so. Imagine that those Americans were labeled terrorists or insurgents for their defensive actions and routinely killed or captured or tortured by the foreign troops on our land. Imagine that the occupiers' attitude was that if they just killed enough Americans, the resistance would stop. But instead, for every American killed, 10 more would take up arms against them, resulting in perpetual bloodshed. Imagine if most of the citizens of the foreign land also wanted these troops to return home. Imagine if they elected a leader who promised to bring them home and put an end to this horror. Imagine if that leader changed his mind once he took office. The reality is that our military presence on foreign soil is as offensive to the people that live there as armed Chinese troops would be if they were stationed in Texas. Shutting down military bases
and ceasing to deal with other nations with threats and violence is not isolationism. It is the opposite. Opening ourselves up to friendship, honest trade, and diplomacy is the foreign policy of peace and prosperity. It is the only foreign policy that will not bankrupt us in the short order, as our current actions most definitely will. I share the disappointment of the American people in the foreign policy rhetoric coming from the administration. The sad thing is, our foreign policy will change eventually, as Rome's did, when all budgetary and monetary tricks to fund it are exhausted.
If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the Infowars store at Infowars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe Infowars t-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at Infowars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there. Wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens. It's all there. Infowars.com. What if Chinese troops invaded America? I can think of another angle. What if foreign banks took over America in 1913 and have now basically completely rendered the country unrecognizable and used us as an engine of evil worldwide? What about that? Because that's what's happened. And we need to recognize that we become basically like the Germans in Germany or the Russians under the communists. We've got to recognize that this evil is done in our name. We've got to get the public focused in on real issues. That's why I didn't sit on my laurels with Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com. I didn't sit on my laurels with the syndicated radio show and all the films I've made. Because we're having an effect in reaching millions a day, we started Infowars Nightly News. We couldn't have done it without you, the subscribers at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. It is you supporting us and subscribing that allows this to air every night at 7 o'clock Central weeknights and then go out to everybody else on the internet. Millions of people watch it a week. We're developing it for different cable and satellite systems. And we also air parts of it on the syndicated radio show that reaches 3 million people a day. We're doing this because of your support. We couldn't do it without you, and I want to thank all of you that do subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, we're running a special through Christmas. You can get basically close to half a year free. It's 5.3 months free or 44% off when you sign up for a year. We've got some other specials right now, too, at PrisonPlanet.tv. Okay, let's accelerate into the news here. No indication Iran shot down U.S. drone. That was the news yesterday out of Sky Television, Reuters, and others. Has a 90-foot wingspan, $6 million. They're also having their different bases bombed over there. So this is probably a weaponized drone. And the Iranians have it. They're threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That'll send oil to $200 a barrel. That's about $7 a gallon there at the gas pump. Just absolutely incredible. But now the Pentagon's come out and says, okay, looks like they do have the drone. So Iran has put up with a lot. I'm not saying they're great. Most governments are corrupt. My point is, we don't want World War III with these people. Now, I want to shift gears and look at the real enemy of this country. This is a Senator J. Rockefeller quote from more than 15 years ago. And Senator J. Rockefeller, the head of the Rockefeller dynasty now, David's passed the baton to him, quips about world domination, Bilderberg, Trilateral Commission, and rule by the rich. He's so funny he forgot to laugh, Lou Rockwell writes. LouRockwell.com writes, by the way, no wonder Pat Buchanan doesn't support Austrian economics. And this is a roast for Pat Buchanan by J. Rockefeller. The full video and the full date and everything is at Infowars.com. But everything he's saying is actually true here, but they make it a joke. And look at how 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you got laughed at for this stuff. Now it's mainline news. They were stalling you until they thought it was too late. Let's go ahead and go to this clip.
But he'd have to shake a label that gets assigned to people like Pat who run for the presidency, and that is that he's a tool of the rich. I personally like that very much. My father told me that's the way the system is meant to work. You know, I think Pat's coming quickly. Soon, I think he's going to be in a position for the Trilateral Commission. And if he shows promise beyond that, there's Bilderberg. World control, Pat. Settle for nothing else.
All right. And again, I'm going to dig out the date of that because I had it on a printout, but I want to give you the actual date of that. We've got it again at Infowars.com in the hot news section. You can, 1991. So October 19th, 1991 is the date of that, right when George Herbert Walker Bush was calling for a new world order and out of these troubled times, how the great transformation would take place. Great job getting that up, guys. Now, I wanted to play Olympia Snow because both these senators voted last Thursday to have the military on the streets of America and secretly arrest you and your family anytime they want and throw you in a dungeon or even kill you. And Obama came out and said, I'm going to veto that bill because I don't need congressional approval. I can do that on my own, including killing citizens. And that was hailed by the ACLU as, oh, how democratic. Only the Fuhrer can kill people for no reason. Let's go ahead and go to Senator Olympia Snow, another traitor, called for a new world order back in 1996, and she thought it was real funny. Here it is.
That in this day and age when we need a new world order when it comes to our own State Department related agencies, we have to reorganize. And it's important to have a unified, singular voice when it comes to delivering our foreign policy. And that was the basic intent of this agency consolidation. But we have met resistance at every step of the way by the administration.
And you've gotten what you wanted. You've gotten your consolidation. Now the government can deal the drugs and launder the money properly, federalize the police, launch all these illegal wars. America is now known as an engine of total wickedness and danger and Hitlerian pain. Just incredible. Yeah, the checks and balances, separation of powers is what the founders called for. You call for something else, don't you? Because it's not our country, it's you criminals' country. Now, continuing, U.S. evacuates Pakistan air base. At least they're saying they're getting ready to evacuate it after bombing and killing a bunch of Pakistani military people. Again, very, very dangerous escalation worldwide with these drones flying around, killing people. And the Russians have moved ships into the Mediterranean there off Syria. Also, there's a big London Guardian reporting that revealing the true cost of Christmas toys we buy from China's factories, late wages, and fines for using the toilet. They work up to 140 hours of overtime a month, were paid up to a month late, claimed they were expected to work with dangerous tools and machines without training or safety measures, had to work in silence, and were fined up to £5 or about $8 for going to the toilet without permission. And again, we're competing with all of this, with all the regulations they put on us to shut us down because the globalists have all moved to China. And it doesn't raise up the Chinese people. It's a race to the bottom. Mexico can't even keep factories now because they're all going to China. And they had to put suicide nets up around most of their factories. It's that bad. By the way, no child welfare taking your kids there. Many of them chain their children. This is in mainstream news, to light poles outside the factories all day, and the children get one meal if they're lucky. Sometimes go days. So the children are chained outside, defecating on the ground. There's some incredible online photos of it, like dogs. And that's what we're competing with. It's just unbelievable. Talk about the big sucking sound. Meanwhile, the Weekly Standard reports big business sides with Iran. In a letter, the USA engaged director states, given the reported announcement intent of sanctions and amendments to target Iran's crude oil sales in the world market, the adverse effects on the world economy and on vital U.S. interests could be considerable. Such hasty, draconian, unilateral legislation would be ill-advised. And now they're threatening. By the way, this is cutting China's oil off, which is basically an act of war. That's what the Japanese ended up attacking us in World War II, because we cut off their oil. Very, very serious, and will drive up prices here. But the globalists don't care. So what? They're selling the oil. Continuing, the Chinese situation, again, is really escalating. Oh, look, they found a photo of it. There is the child chained up to the light pole. And that's daycare in China. You think you're going to compete with that? No. Our standard will be lowered to that. The Chinese will not be lifted up unless they're Communist Party insiders, all part of this parasitic activity. Okay, continuing. The Tokyo Electric Power Company says radioactive water may have leaked into the sea. That's been known for 6-8 months. So they're now telling us the obvious there. And it's all drifting towards the United States, of course. In fact, the first radioactive isotopes from the water, from the ocean, actually hit just a few weeks ago, and all that debris. But they're telling people in California and Oregon and Washington, don't worry about it, it's good for you. Also, protesters march against bill that could designate them as terrorists, exercising First Amendment defined as low-level terrorism by the DOD, and we have those documents in this prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com article by Paul Joseph Watson, the actual memos where protesting is now an act of terrorism. Continuing, I wanted to get into this because remember the Pokemon TV show a decade ago caused seizures all over the world? Some cases, thousands of kids. Sometimes they would fall down and bust their head open and die on the spot. This is because the flicker rate of televisions it's not that it can, it always puts you into a highly suggestible state, as Darren McBreen's report a few weeks ago showed. But a lot of times it actually lowers you into an actual dream state. You're sleepwalking. And there's an article here out of the Vancouver Sun. Rash of twilight-induced seizures prompts warning at the beginning of the film because of some of the sequences they have, the flicker rate. And again, they figured this out 60, 70 years ago. I've been at the University of Texas psychology department, was shown secret stuff by an insider years ago that I covered, where they have monkeys with wires in their brains who sit there and they test flicker rates on them to make them more highly suggestible, and they euthanize them afterwards. So when you're watching television, especially broadcast TV, especially high-def TV, it's no joke, folks, what they can do with that. Okay, continuing here, I wanted to end the transmission with something interesting. Woolly mammoth to be brought back to life from cloned bone marrow within 5 years. Scientists believe it may be possible to clone a woolly mammoth within 5 years after finding well-preserved marrow in the thigh bone recovered from permafrost soil in Siberia, Russia. Very, very interesting, and they're talking about trying to do it with some of the prehistoric dinosaurs because they may be able to have new technologies they're developing to be able to uncrystallize fossilized DNA and then rebuild it and do it. But what kind of ancient viruses or other microplasms could this release? What can releasing genetically modified insects and mosquitoes do? I mean, what has GMO crops already done, especially when those directing this build Trojan horses into the vaccines and GMO foods? But it is amazing and very, very interesting. All right, great job to the crew. That's it for this edition of Infowars Nightly News. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central. The system more and more wants to censor this information because we're actually having effect. So please don't forget that we are listener supported. Even if you don't become a subscriber at prisonplanet.tv to see it first, and almost 9 years of films and material that are posted at prisonplanet.tv, you can certainly spread the word about Infowars.com and prisonplanet.com and pay forward this information. All right, great job with the crew. I'm Alex Jones signing off from the front lines of the Infowar. Until tomorrow, vaya con Dios.
What's up with these sorry politicians? Lots of bark, but when it's showtime, whimpering like little shih tzus. You want big cuts. Ron Paul's been screaming it for years. Budget crisis? No problem. Got $1 trillion year one. That's trillion with a T. Department of Education? Gone. Interior, Energy, HUD, Commerce? Gone. Later, bureaucrats. That's how Ron Paul rolls. Want to drain the swamp? Ron Paul. Do it.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.